Hello, this is the Grumpy Workshop guy with an onshape tutorial, ideally aimed at kids, but if you're an adult and you want to watch it, what can I do to stop you? Okay, so in onshape, we're going to create a new document, plus document, and we're going to name it Burb House. We're creating a birdhouse, or burb house. The idea here is to create the basic shape and thicken the edges. This is a technique you can use for a lot of different planar flat construction. So looking at the front, click up here to create a sketch. Click on the front to create the sketch on my front plane here. And now I'm going to make a center point rectangle just because I like them. And if you can start on your XY coordinate right at the origin, then it just makes things like symmetry a whole lot easier. So I've made a little box. I have no idea how big it is. On the iPad, I've then got to go back and use my dimension tool here and click on one of the sides. So click. And I'm going to pick a size for it. I don't know, 200. I'll make this giant for a little birdhouse. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, and I'll make it 200 as well, just because why not? It's a square house. But now I'm going to need to make some kind of a little roof. So turning off my dimension tool, back to my drawing tools, I'm going to use my line tool. If I want to have like a little peaked roof on the front of this thing, first thing I'm going to do is move my mouse over the middle origin point and then move it up. You see how there's a little dotted line or the snap here in the middle? That means that my icon is currently right in the middle of my sketch. I use a center point rectangle, so that's in the middle of the sketch. That means this is perfectly aligned in the middle of my house. So if I draw a line out to here, that is exactly in the middle. And if I were to draw another line from here to say here, that is now perfectly symmetrical right down the middle. That is the front shape of my burb house. I'm going to go and use my my trim tool. Don't really need to, but I'm going to get rid of these lines here because that's not part of what I'm doing. I'm creating just this shape. And I'm going to go to my three-dimensional tools, which is up here, and go to extrude. So now if you pan to the side, you can see I am extruding this object. First off, I want to make it symmetric. I tend to always make things symmetric if I'm starting with a basic shape or if I'm working with kids, because then, once again, everything's right there in the middle of your origin, not off to one side. So if you need to split something in half, you can. I'm going to make my house, let's see, it was 200, I'll make it 200. So now it is a 200 by 200 by 200 house thing, solid. Excellent. So now I've got this shape. Well, right now, that's just a giant, kind of a odd cuboid thing. I need this to be faces if I'm going to laser cut it. And the tool that I love for that is this thicken tool. If you click on one of the faces, you can see that it just thickens it. It makes it into a new plane. If I go to new, it makes it into a new plane. The three things you need to do if you're going to be repeating this process in the workshop: one, you have to choose the face. Well, that's one. Second is choose the direction. This is how thick it is. So this is really the thickness of whatever material you're using. A lot of what we're building is 3 mil MDF, which comes out to about 2.85 millimeters. So that's the magic number I normally work with. And then we want to go down here to opposite direction, because if you look at it, when it's regular, it's poking out. We want it to poke in. So if all the faces are poking in, that means they're overlapping on the corner, and then we can joint them, which is exciting. So the next step is pick another face, thicken it, and repeat exactly the same thing. New, 2.85, opposite direction, tick, another face. Now, you can do multiple faces at a time. I normally don't tell the kids that because you can't do two faces that are touching each other, and that seems to be a point of confusion. But as long as they're not adjacent and touching, it will create separate objects out of this. So if we go to new, 2.85, and opposite direction, see how it's created those two faces. We could do it again, thicken, and do this top face here and this bottom face here. Now you might have noticed just then I had a little target on the iPad. If you click and hold your mouse just for, your finger, if you click and hold just for a second, it creates a target, and that allows you to select things really accurately. Just better than just clicking around, because you click around and a lot of times it's hard to pick what you're clicking. And you want to pick what you're clicking. All right, so we're going to new and 2.85 and opposite direction. So again, this 2.85 would be a different measurement if we were using a different thickness of material. And I can turn off over here. You see, I've got my parts here. If I turn off part 1, that's the first box that I built. And so you can see how it's creating all the faces, but I'm missing one. So turn it back on, thicken this, and 2.85, blink, and opposite direction. And I don't want to remove, I want, new. I believe that's right. Yep. Turn this one off. Now I should have all the faces of my burb house. Now, you probably want a door in your burb house. So I'm going to click on front here to look at the front of my burb house. I'm going to put a window and a little door in here. So I need to create a sketch onto this face of the burb house right here. I can click on my sketch tool. It says select a plane or a face or a surface. In the past, we've just done it on planes. This time, I'm going to click right on this face right here. So you can see my, you can't see that. My sketch is actually right on the edge of this object. So it's right on the face here. So I click on front. I'm going to choose, corner point rectangle. And I'm going to draw a little door. I'm going to draw a door from the very bottom here up to, there. That's going to be the door to my burb house. Now, what I want to do is remove it from this front face. Before I do that, you might want to move it around. To move it around, you would select one of the points or one of the edges with your target tool, and then you can drag the sides. I haven't defined my width, so it's just free to move around. If I want to define how wide it is, like numerically, I can use my dimension tool and say, sure, 30, that sounds good. So once I've defined my width, now if I try and move it side to side, the whole door moves because I've defined the width. So this is one of the constraints in Onshape. They're wonderfully powerful and they're really easy to get confused. We're in the middle. And now I'm going to make a window. Well, windows are a little bit tricky because most kids will draw a rectangle, which is fine, but then you just have a hole. And then they decide that they want to have a line down the middle. So they will literally just draw a line down the middle. Unfortunately, this doesn't create anything good for cutting. It just creates these lines, and if you chopped them all out, the whole window would fall apart anyway. So what we're going to have to do if we want to reproduce that is use a center point rectangle. So if I roll over this end and roll over this end, then I've got 2 reference points. So now I can start right this in the middle. And I've now made a width. And I'm going to dimension that and say, well, let me, no, okay, I'll dimension between here and here. And that's going to be 3 mils. That's small. Now you notice that it shrank my window when I did that. That's because I hadn't defined anything. I could have defined before I drew that little shape. If I dimensioned the top of my window and said, I want this to be, 35 and by 35. Then if I were to draw a center point rectangle, snapping to here, and going up to there, and then defining the width of it as hello. So that happened. I didn't hold it down long enough, and it just started moving the screen around. So I was going to make that 3 mils wide. Now you see it didn't move the edges of the window because they were defined how wide they should be. So there's no reason for them to move. Now, if I do my center point rectangle the other way, then I can now do a dimension on this. So normally I wouldn't have kids go into this level of detailing. They just draw something that looks kind of right. But when they're getting advanced or when they start mouthing off to me, I'll definitely push them to do something more sophisticated like this. So now once you've drawn these squares, you can use your trim tool here. And if I go and select these parts, there might be 2 of them because I got multiple rectangles on top of each other, and start trimming away all the parts. that I don't want to be in my window. And I'm either missing or there's a lot of them there. And here, and oh my gosh, still going. I might be missing it. There we go. Oh, there's two on this side. Yeah, it sounds like the laser cut is done. This will be a short video. Trimity trim, trim, chiroo. Come on, trim. Yes. So now, what I have are these 4 holes that when you cut them out will leave behind the illusion of a window pane window. Now, I could create a little face that goes on top of this, and I might, but in this tutorial I probably won't. So if I take this sketch, I've now drawn a window and a door, and I do a 3-dimensional extrude on this. Now the first thing it's going to think I want to do is make things that poke out of the front of the burb house. But I actually want to cut them out of the front of the burb house. So you can change this from new to remove. It will reverse the direction. It doesn't know yet what I want to cut them out of. So if I go down here to merge scope and choose this face, that's what I want to cut it out of. Boom. Now I have doors and a window into my burb house. This is almost ready to do some more stuff with, but first I want to show you, well, most burb houses and or doll houses would have an extra little patio kind of here in the front. I'm going to go ahead and make one of those. I'm going to use my extrude tool up here, and I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to change it from new to add, and I'm going to add it to select my scope, choose the face I want to add it to. That looked like it was choosing the front. I'm going to choose that. Now it is adding it to the front. I can just drag this out. I could put a number over here if I wanted to, but I mostly just drag it out by hand to, I don't know, the size of whatever a burb is. Take that. All right. But these edges are a little sharp for a poor little burb. So I'm going to look up here into my 3-dimensional tools, and there is one of them called fillet or fillet if you're fancy. If I choose just that little line right on the corner there, it will round it off. I can type in a number over here if I want to. You can also do more than one at a time. So I'm going to also choose this little face right here. Boom. And that's the sound. Tick. Yay. Now I have cute little front to it. But you know what? This house looks a little bit weird without overhangs. Because, you know, Sylvanian families don't want to live in a thing without overhangs. So I'm going to, I think it's too small for Sylvanian families anyway. I'm going to choose my extrude tool. And I'm going to pick this little face here if it lets me. Okay, it's not. So I'm going to turn off that front part and choose just that face. I'm going to make a little bit of an overhang. What is that? I don't know. I like that. 25 mils. I'll take it. Oh, I forgot to do it. So, I forgot. That's really good. What can I do? Well, over here in my history timeline, which, by the way, you can always reorder, so you can make things happen before other things. But right now I'm going to go back into my extrude 4, click on this and go edit it, and then you can change what's going on. By that same token, I can go back to, you know, even my original sketch and edit it, and I could redefine my windows, or I could redefine the original shape, and all of that. As long as what happened after that makes sense mathematically, it will update everything from there on. But right now, I just need to go to my last extrude, edit that, and make sure that it is not new. It is add, and it has something to add to. It is adding to this. Yay. Now there's a little overhang. I have to do this separately because if I tried to do this one and the other one at the same time, then they would merge together into one shape, and then I wouldn't have faces because I need faces if I'm going to laser cut this. So I'm going to choose another extrude, pick this face again. It's still 25 mils. Add it to this thing here. Boom. Lovely. But you know what? I think it needs to poke out a little bit on the side. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to choose this face here. Let that one go out 25. And you go to add. And adding it to the roof panel. There. Tick. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. Now, we'll see some anomalies, but we'll cover that in a little bit. Choose that face here. Again, 25. That's the default. I like it. Entity, this. So I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Hopefully you're following along and I make sense and I'm not maddening. So if I turn my face on, you can see, isn't that much more adorbs? Totes adorbs right there. If it's a birdhouse, you don't necessarily need to get inside. If it's a dollhouse, you kind of do. There's different ways to do it. You could leave the back face off, which is not that one. Yay. I mean, you could just leave the back face off and have it open. It's a little less structurally strong by not having anything around the outside on the back. So what we could do is make some openings. We're going to create another sketch onto the back. We're going to use a new tool. Exciting. I'm going to use an offset tool. And I'm going to offset. And that one's the right face. And ooh, is that one not lining up? Oh, it is. And that one. So before, I'm going to make that like 20. And so it has come in 20. It is offset from the outside about 20 mils. I can change that now. You can say, you know what? Make that 25. That's our magic number. And I'm going to go ahead and offset this bottom one as well. I should have done it before. I guess I missed 20. No, I was doing 25. 25. And now I'm going to trim away my extra bits. Don't really need to, but so the idea is it's looking for a solid shape. The middle of this is definitely a solid shape. So I could just extrude that away, and I will. I'm just going to go to my three-dimensional tools, go to my extrude, choose that face, and go to remove. And since it was built onto that face, it automatically knew to make that part of the merge scope. Tick. And now there's an opening in the back. If you want that, then you could reach inside. But you know what? This dollhouse probably needs a little middle floor, don't you think? How sad is it to not have a middle floor? Well, that middle floor happens to be right around where my top plane is because I made this all symmetric. So I'm going to create a sketch on this top plane. I missed that one. Okay, I'm going to go back. Here's a good one. You go to your sketch. This is where my sketch plane is. You can always edit that by dragging this and saying delete. Now I'm going to choose my sketch plane, but this time I'm going to go up here and click on this top plane there. Now my sketch is right there on the top plane. I can draw a corner rectangle that is the size of the building. So, well, see, now I can't snap to these corners, but I want to snap to these corners. Well, I can't because these corners are at the bottom. They are down here at the bottom, but I'm drawing up here. So there's no reference point for these corners up into this sketch unless I make one. So I'm going to select a bunch of this stuff, tick, tab, delete. So what I did there is hold down two fingers, makes a little selection box. Down here at the bottom, you can go check. You can right click with two fingers and say delete, but it's already gone. So maybe what I'm going to do is look on the bottom here. I want to bring these little points up so I have the exact corners of my house. And the way I'm going to do that is using my use tool. Very strange. If I now click and move over, you can see I can bring in points from other things. There's a point here. If I bring that point in, it has now projected that point into my current plane. By the same token, if I try and use this very, very bottom quarter here, it is now actually projected into my plane, which is right in the middle. So if I draw a corner rectangle between this point and this point, it looks all weird here because I'm looking at an angle, but if I look at it from the bottom, you'll see that is exactly the dimensions of my burb house. So I could then draw a random square that I don't need and undo it. Then I can do a three-dimensional extrude that is 2.85 millimeters thick. And now you'll see I have a little floor in my house. There's a lot of ways to do this. I'm just showing you what comes to mind. I make sure it's a new object and tick. Now, if I turned off all of my guides, origin and top and front and right, and I don't think any sketches are on if I turn them on, you can now see this is the basics of a little burb Slovenian family's house. Oh, but you know what? Turns out this is too low. I want to move this up. Well, I could go back and change where my plane was, or I could use a new tool. Whee! And my new tool is a three-dimensional tool called Transform. More than meets the eye. If I choose, this is the face I'm going to transform, or this is the object I'm going to transform. I'm going to say transform by line. No, because I don't really have a perfect line that's going to draw it up where I want to go. I just want to do this by eye. So I'm going to choose my translate by XYZ coordinates, which gives me these little tools here. I want to drag this here. Yes, that allows me to move just up and down in one dimension, and I can get it to where I want it. So if I look back at the back, and I think that's where I want it, tick. Now, if we pan around, you can see a lovely little second story. You can start building furniture, but that might be something for another project. Now, the next step I would do is what's called laser joint. There doesn't seem to be a way on the iPad to do that. So normally we would share it with an individual, being me. Tick, share. Now, the great thing about Onshape being online and collaborative is I can go up to my laptop just off frame that you can't see. And that's not the great thing, but the great thing is we can actually both be working on this at the same time. If you look up here, you'll see, oh, there's another person looking at and or viewing this project. Well, I'm going to apply a filter that I can do on the laptop version called laser joint. I'm going to select all the parts, and in a second it should update. Yeah, it just updated. So this is what I normally do with the kids. I can show you in another tutorial how that works. It's interesting because the laser joint actually, when things are meeting at funky angles, it makes a larger hole so it can accommodate the full width, which is really handy. This is something that you can do by hand, but boy, it's just kind of fun to click a button and have it do it. This is not quite 45 degrees, so you can see there's a little bit of a angular discrepancy, but it's all cut to the right size. The next step would be to then make this ready to laser cut. Well, you have to lay everything flat. So once again, I'd go up to my laptop. So this is where you'd share it with me and then complain to me. I'm going to then add auto layout plugin, and that should lay everything flat. Whee! Now, what's interesting is once you have these in your timeline, they're here. So if you're working with a kid and you know they're going to be using it, you can add the laser joint and the auto layout while they first begin working on it. And then using your reorder tool up here, you can drag your current timeline. So at the bottom here, this line at the bottom means, this one means now. So if I move this up, this is now, and these are later, so they haven't really happened yet. So if you hit done, now you can work as normal, but you've got these in your timeline that you can drag up at any moment. So if I want to come back and drag up my laser joint, I could drag it up too far, but that could cause problems. So I'm going to drag it back down to where it should be. And I'm going to drag down my auto layout, up my auto layout, and hit done. So now this is conceivably ready to export and laser cut. Hey, if you have any questions about anything, go ahead and add them in the comments and I can tweak a future tutorial. Again, these are all kind of tutorials meant for the students at Ao Tawhiti Unlimited Discovery that come into the workshop that I run. But if anyone else has any questions, I'm happy to answer because this is lots of fun. Right, that's the grumpy workshop guy. Awesome.